Good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to your time in the gym in the Growing Your Mindset podcast with Adam Diaz and Justin Hoke. And however, if you have been joining us, you know that this is not Justin Hoke beside me here. Isaac Smith is joining us once again for another phenomenal episode. Thank you so much for being here with me, bro.
Man, likewise, I'm honored to be here, man. I'm excited for this subject here, so that we're going to be talking about.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. So glad to have you back in action, Brian. I was about to call you if I didn't see you today, man. But yes, good morning, Mom. Good morning, Angie. Everyone else that is piling in right now. So happy to have you guys here, ready to rock and roll today. This subject that we're talking about today is near and dear to me. It is, if anybody knows about my journey over the last couple of years, I have taken an interest in real estate investing and investing in general. And so over the last several years, I've been really studying this kind of thing. And I came to the realization that I've been an investor for a long time. But it hasn't been anything financially. It was more of investing in this family that I have. And we're going to be talking about, I guess, the beginnings of that investment, those seeds that you begin to implant. And we're going to be talking about the marriage relationship this morning because I think it's a great segue from our conversation yesterday about what a man is. And once we have ourselves figured out in a real sense, then we can help. We can become another a unit with somebody else. And one of the things that we had talked about when I first hopped on, when we were chatting this morning, was that I have an accountability partner that I talk with every day, and another one that I speak with on a weekly basis. And this really is so helpful. And you had brought up this idea. It's like, well, that's awesome. This is really good that you're doing this. And this is just goes to show how we are not meant to be alone. That we are not meant to do all of this stuff together or alone by ourselves, and that we need people in our lives. And this is the very reason why we read in Genesis that God created Adam, and then he created a helper, Eve, there to share this life with him.
Absolutely, man, and that's why I was trying to articulate to you earlier, man, that is phenomenal that you have accountability people around you, and this is why we're going to be talking about marriage, is because your spouse is your ultimate accountability partner. They see you for who you are, not as the world experience you. See, your spouse experience all the version of you, and so they get a chance to see the real you, that we don't portray or present to the world. And this is why it is so helpful, and marriage is so beautiful, because we get a chance to have a partner that is willing to help us grow in areas that we're weak or struggling in, if we allow them to do that.
And I couldn't agree more. And when we're talking about accountability, we're talking about these people that see us on all sides, are the good, bad, and the ugly. And it's a humbling thing to know that there's somebody there that knows all of our sides. And I think a lot of times, if we're not careful, that can be a point of contention rather than a leverage for support and growth.
Yes, sir. And man, I wanted to, man, somebody shared this with me, Adam. He was saying that for men, there's three categories, three levels, and it kind of gradually goes up. So in marriage, your husband is willing to be honest, but may not be transparent. Or he may be willing to be transparent, but he's not willing to be vulnerable. So he was explaining, I was like, well, what's the difference in all three? He said, okay, an honest husband, if you ask the right question, he'll tell you the truth. But it's dependent upon you asking the right question. If you didn't ask the right question, then you won't get the right answer. A transparent person is that you see that I have a problem, and I show it to you. I show you that my eye is out. Instead of me putting on glasses around you, I take the glasses off and just be transparent. You see that my eyes going, and I'm allowing you to see that. That's transparent. So being vulnerable is when you don't ask, and when you're not able to see it, and it's on the inside and nobody knows. I tell you it anyway without you ever knowing. I can go a million years and you'll never know that that's what's inside of me, and that's vulnerability. And that's the state that everyone needs to get to, is vulnerability in their marriage, that when your spouse doesn't ask you the right question to pull it out, and they're not able to, just physically see it that you hurt, but you offer that information. And that's what the ultimate level of intimacy is that you're able to be vulnerable with a person about your innermost parts of yourself that nobody ever knows.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, this is so cool that you bring this up, this idea of, because so many times don't we do that? We won't say anything, or until someone says something, and then, it's like, we'll be honest, but, we're not going to really overshare. We're not really, because it's, we don't want to feel vulnerable, right? We don't want to. And this kind of goes back to what I was just mentioning, that a lot of times we won't leverage our biggest accountability partner. We won't leverage them. Instead, we fight about things, and we try to shield and put up these defenses like we're talking to the rest of the world. And until we can become humble and vulnerable, and like really be like, embrace the true sense of intimacy, nothing physical in the sense of that, but true intimacy, then we can make progress in our relationships. And because I can say, hey babe, like, where's my blind spots? How's the back of my hair looking? And we can share these things together. And a lot of times it is pain. A lot of times it is fear, and when we feel like we're going through these things by ourselves, it's so much more pressure. It's way heavier to go through something by yourself, even if your spouse really can't help. Like, even if they don't know what to do, just by being able to rely on someone to talk it out and share those things with them, it can make all the difference.
Man, you're absolutely right, man. So what I would like to do, I've been married, would be 11 years, July the 3rd. And I would just like to give people, some things of what not to do, in our marriage, we communicated a lot. We communicated a lot of frustration, a lot of anger,
Very
a
loudly.
lot of things that we don't like, and so it was we had a sight and a vision problem, because we was looking at problems as problems and not looking at them as a great tool for growth. And when we start to look at our problems as not problems, but opportunities for us to just become the greatest version of ourselves, our relationship drastically changed. And that took like probably over 7 years to get there, because of we just couldn't see it. So it was about perspective. And so we came down to, we was like, every book says communication is the key, communication. And we're like, we are communicating. I'm telling you what I don't like about you. You're telling me what you don't like about, and why this marriage is not getting better. So then I realized, I was like, communication is the key. That's the first step. But the second key is comprehension.
Yep.
How do you comprehend what they are communicating? And so what I started to realize, I would tell my wife how I feel about her. So I may say, babe, sweet cakes, look, I don't like this about your behavior when you speak loudly to me. I don't like that. When I started to realize is, if I asked her to tell me what did you hear me say, she would say, I heard you say you don't like me. I said, no, I love you. I like you. I just don't like your bad behavior in that moment. It's just that one thing that I don't like. It's not you, it's the behavior that you're displaying. And so that's what I realized about comprehension. And so this is what I would do. I would say, babe, I apologize for not articulating it clearly, in which you can receive it better. So let me try to articulate better what I'm really trying to say is this. And once I do that, she started to be disarmed. And so now we started to actually make stride and growth in our relationship, you know. So I don't know if you experienced that in your marriage or not, Adam.
Man, this is we talk about this a lot on the podcast, the idea of empathic listening. And this has been my favorite subject other than wisdom, for a very long time. And so when we're talking about this idea of, I've never heard it said like this, communication and then comprehension. And it's so true. It's so true that so many times we'll talk to our spouses and will, whether it's some kind of incident, altercation or something, and we'll hear what they're saying, and we know what they're getting at, but then we choose to latch on to the words that they're saying, or whatever, how they're saying it, and we're not reading between the lines. And I think this is what this is, this idea of taking the time, putting myself in her shoes, and walking a little bit around, thinking about, like, okay, what's the motivating thing here? Why are they doing this? And I really love what you said there, as far as when she misunderstands you, you take it as like, I'm sorry, I didn't clearly explain that. And I love this because it keeps the responsibility, it keeps the control on my court. Because if I say, you never hear me, or you're always misunderstanding and you're always twisting my words, this absolves all of my responsibility. I am completely giving away all of my control when I do that. But if I'm saying, hey, I'm sorry, I should have communicated this in a different way, what that does, it completely disarms them. It completely takes all of that fight and it shifts it to, we're not across the table from each other anymore, but now we're sitting on the same side of the table. And now we're looking at the problem. The problem isn't us. The problem is this. And so I think this is one of the things that I've realized lately. And it's this idea of conflating our emotions. So many times we'll have so many complicated things going on, and we'll feel maybe this situation is going on simultaneously with this one, and we'll feel angry about one and we'll feel frustrated about the other. But if we don't take the time to, like, look at those moving parts and say, like you were saying, it wasn't the actions of your wife, or it wasn't your wife, her person, but it was the actions, right? But if we mix them together, like, oh, you don't like me. And so a lot of times we have to pull those apart and sort them out and untangle them and say, okay, this is what I'm angry about and this is what I'm disappointed about. They're two different things. And now we can, like, start working together as far as looking at the problem and coming up with solutions.
Absolutely, absolutely, Adam, and that really helped me to understand the comprehension key to this. And so I was like, man, thank you, Lord, for letting me, see that. But also, Adam, this is, my dad used to gave me this analogy that really helped my marriage. Is this? He said a good marriage is like a fishing net, right? So when you cast a net, all the good things in your marriage is representative of fish that you catch, right? Love, appreciation, joy. Those are the fish that you want in your marriage, right? So as you guys cast that net out and you pull it back in every day, it's filled with fish, but it has some debris, some sticks, some things in there that you don't want. And so the sticks in there are like lack of appreciation, or a lack of being considerate, or a lack of being kind or speaking kind words. And what happens is, my dad told me that every time you pull in, you're going to get some fish, and you're going to get some things you do want in your marriage, and you're going to have some things you don't want. And what you have to do every single day, you have to pull out the bad things that you don't want in your marriage every single day before you cast that net out. What happens is, a lot of times people never get the sticks out of the net, and so they keep throwing it out and they catch more sticks. They keep throwing it out, they catch more debris. and they keep throwing it out, and to the point to where they get frustrated because they're not catching any fish.
Yep.
And frustration sits in the marriage because you're not getting the things that you want, and you keep casting this net out, and you're getting more and more of the debris and less of the fish. And so what happens is when you keep throwing it out there, you keep getting debris, it gets stuck, and it get hard to pull back in. And you know what people decide to do? They said it's better for us to cut the net than trying to keep pulling this net that's not getting anything in. And that's a representation of marriages. The reason why marriages fail is because they fail to deal with the debris that comes into their marriage and get it out of their marriage. And then that way they can catch more of the things they want in their marriage.
Man, it's such a great illustration, because so many times we are looking at this net and we're seeing it full of sticks, and we're saying, why are we not catching any more fish? Like, what's going on? I'm starving here. And we're looking at it, and it's in so many ways painfully obvious. But I think it goes back to some of the things that Stephen Covey talks about in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where these are those high level things that aren't necessarily urgent, but they're important. And so a lot of times we spend our days dealing with the fires, the urgent things, all of these things, or creatively avoiding the important stuff. And this is the result. We have this net that's full of debris, that's full of sticks, that's not good for anything and then the only way to fix it is either to cut it, which is not really fixing it, or to like take the painstaking time to pull everything out of it, because this is the only way. And so many times, like I'm sure in your marriage, I was not the leader that I should have been many years in. It took a long time for me to develop and the awareness, let alone the skills. And so there was a lot of debris and a lot of sticks in our net. And we had to take a lot of time to pull those things out. And the crazy thing is, like, no matter how much effort you do yesterday, like there's still going to be the same amount of accumulation if you keep doing things. So it's a constant maintenance job that we have to do, and it takes work. A lot of times we think because we're sold on fairy tales and these stories of knights and princesses and things, that once the I do's happen and they live happily ever after. The only way that happily ever after actually happens is we're pulling out all those sticks every day, the grind, right? All of these things that are daily consistent things that we have to do, because we can't say, oh, well, I've been doing this for too long. I don't have to do, I shouldn't have to do these things anymore. But what we're doing there is saying, I'm holding something else more valuable than, my time doing something else is more valuable than, maintaining this net.
Absolutely. And another thing, Adam, when I got married, I understood that marriage is not about me. Actually, marriage is about God getting glory through our story. So what happens is that in order to be married and stay married and have a beautiful marriage, you have to put into some principle called the fruit of the Spirit. And if you fail to put those principles in action, your marriage is gonna fail. And so God is like, I created an institution that you would have to be the best version of yourself, and you have to use my principles in order to do that. And so I have to use a lot of God principles. So like, this one thing I tell people is that God don't pick people for you. And a lot of people say, man, God is going to send something. It says, he who finds a wife. And it say, God who finds a wife for you, attain favor from the Lord. It says, he who finds. So God said, it's your job to find your own wife. All God does is give you the raw material and what you need to look for, and you are expected to build from that. So in other words, my wife was not it never would be a finished product. So when he say he finds a wife finds a good thing, what he's saying is that though is a person that displays the raw material of a wife, but she's not going to be perfected until she actually get into the marriage. And so like God never created Adam, gave Adam a house. He gave him trees. He never gave him a desk. He gave him wood that he can build his own desk. So in other words, God says to us that whatever we want is for up to us to build the image of what we want in our mind, and we to do that. And so probably say, where you get that from? Ephesians 5, when it talks about Christ, it said he sanctified the church, he washed her with the word, so he cleaned her up. She was dirty, he cleaned her up, and then it says he presented her to himself. So in other words, what I realize is that whatever I want my wife to be, I have to build that myself. I have to instill those characteristics into her and set a foundation that she can become what I'm looking for. And so that comes with patience. If you build a house, it takes time building a house. Yeah. If you is farming, it takes time. It takes work and it takes effort to do that. But more importantly, it takes a little suffering. You're gonna have to have some long suffering when doing this. You're gonna have to have some understanding, when doing this. You're gonna have to have some kindness while suffering, in order to build what you're looking for. And so what I realize is that I said, why did God create marriage? Is because it is the greatest institution to display his love. Because think about it, bro. My wife does not honor me because I'm just I'm someone to be respected. That's not it. My wife honors and respects me because she is an honorable person. I don't love my wife because she's just so loving, even though she can make a good case that she's close to being that, now. But I love my wife because I'm a loving person. In other words, I display the characteristics myself. And thus, whether my wife does things hurtful to me, whether she does things I like, it doesn't matter. I'm still gonna love her irregardless of whatever she does. And that's God, yes, that's where I'm trying to get everybody to the state to where it doesn't matter what other people does. You have perfected a character that it doesn't matter what goes on around you. This is who you're gonna be regardless. Right. And I was like, thank you, Lord. Marriage taught me that, it taught me how to be who I am under suffering and pressures and things like that. So,
man, it's such great points. And when we look at, the things that we have to instill, those characteristics, those attributes, before we can even look at our wives, look at our spouses and say, you need to be this and you need to be that. Like, we have to make sure, what are we doing to make it easier for them? Like, what are we doing to remove those excuses? Like, what are we doing to model that behavior? And this is so important because a lot of times we'll just point fingers. And I did this for a long time. We all do it, but when we look at what a marriage relationship is, for what it is, and Sarah and I, when we got married, we were talking about this last night because I couldn't remember. I was asking her, when did we start coming to each other and saying, hey, if you have a problem with anything I'm doing or anything I did, like, come to me and let's talk about it. And she was thinking a little bit, and she said, I think we've been doing it since day one. And I was like, well, that's very interesting, because we finally, after 12 years, almost 13 years of marriage, have almost gotten to a place where we can have that that open communication, without having to go through, because when you say hard stuff, it's hard to take. And it's always a joke in my house that I can dish it, but I can't take it. And so one of the things that we did in our house, and I encourage everybody to do this, is to, as the Bible says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And when there's a problem, and you can't do this for every problem, but when there's a problem and you can, as best as it's up to you to try to resolve those things as immediately as possible. We have things going on in our lives, but in my relationship with my wife, I made a decision in the beginning that we weren't going to, allow things to wedge in between us, and that if there were conflicts and there were issues, that we talk about them. And so we never could just sweep it under the rug. And we decided together that we weren't going to do those kind of things. And that's helped us out so much. In the moment, it doesn't feel like it, because, who has time for a 2-hour conversation, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, on top of all the other things you have to do and this kind of stuff. But if we're looking at why are we doing all the things we're doing, most people who have families will say it's for their families, for their spouses, for their loved ones. And so we have to remember, okay, then if it is for them, like, shouldn't we actually be spending time with them? And this is what it takes. It takes a lot of communication, but like you said, comprehension and the right kind of communication, because we can communicate all day long and not hear each other. We can just, we do it all the time. We see it in the world. But when we're looking at this idea of instilling this in our homes, something special happens. Like that's what I love about retreats and these kind of these conventions and these kind of things that you can go to, that you can make a lot of progress, a lot of growth. You can learn tremendous things that you would not normally do, because you're in this environment that's like, okay, you're expected to share, you're expected to be vulnerable, you're expected to make this growth. So if we make that an expectation in our homes on a daily basis, like, then those defenses don't come up, and then we're able to like really make progress and growth when it needs to be happening. Like, we're pulling out all the sticks as they're coming in, rather than like compiling it all and trying to do it all at once.
Absolutely. Hey, I forgot to give you the other C before communication. So we have communication, comprehension, but there's another C that goes before communication. You know what that is?
What is it?
Compassion.
Compassion. Love it. Love it.
Man, compassion is really big, because if you have compassion before you communicate, a lot of times you're going to find the right way to give harsh or hard critique to the other person. So when you have compassion, man, it really keeps misunderstanding, and it helps with the comprehension part, because now they're not looking at how you said it, they're looking now at what you said.
Yeah.
So, and the compassion helps with that.
Yeah.
So the 3 C's: compassion, communication, and comprehension.
I love it.
Save a marriage, man. It will save
it. And like this formula here is the formula for seeking first to understand, then be understood. When
right.
we're compassionate and when we're really communicating and we're comprehending, we're understanding where our spouse is coming from. And then what happens in my experience is I can be really angry. I can be not understanding, and I'm seeing it from the wrong angles from my perspective, until I ask my wife and I talk to her about things and I get her perspective. And then like suddenly everything changes. Like, I'm no longer mad. I feel more compassion. I want to help, instead of like, I want to just, win an argument or just show her how angry I am. And when we're looking at this idea of empathetic listening and this idea of, actually communicating and speaking each other's love languages, and we are hearing each other, so much growth can happen on both sides that would not be able to even be on our radar without like putting ourselves in the other shoes and being compassionate.
Absolutely, man. Look, man, we can go 5 hours about like just breaking down little details and about our marriage. But I will say this: it's the small things that makes the biggest difference.
Mm-hmm.
If people could understand that it's not about like getting your wife or a big ring or big gifts, expensive gift, it's really not about that. It's about you taking the time to say, you know what, I've been watching my wife. I know she's been complaining about that she really don't like washing the dishes, but guess what I'm gonna do? Every day, I'm gonna make sure I take care of that, since I know that she finds discomfort in that. And I promise you, your wife is gonna love you if you're able to pick up on the things, the little things like that, and make the necessary correction and changes. Your marriage is gonna flourish. It's like soil, like you was talking about. I look at marriage as like a soil, and all these little things is like seed that you plant into the ground. And don't plant anything that you don't want. Don't plant anger. Don't plant frustration. So that means don't be frustrated. Don't be angry. Don't be all those things, because that's what you're planting in the marriage. And so make sure that you are a person that has positive thinking, have the right mindset, listen to positive things that's going to encourage you. You know what? I need to be more loving. I need to be more thoughtful. I need to be more kind. I need to be more considerate. I need to be more grateful and thankful for, and that's another thing I try to do. I make it my priority to thank my wife for every little thing that she do. And what happens is the more I thank my wife, it helps me to be more giving, and it helps me to be more forgiving.
Yeah.
So when I'm more thanksgiving, then I'm more giving, then I'm more apt to forgive whenever she needs it.
Yeah. And I know we talked a lot about communication in here in this, we only had 30 minutes, but this idea of gratitude, and I want to leave us with this morning. It's so important. It's so important to know that, or to have your spouse, your partners know that they are loved and appreciated. And we can't, sometimes you can say thank you, but sometimes it depends on your partner. It depends on how their love language works. And if you haven't checked out the 5 love languages, might want to check that out, because this gives some good insight on some concepts of how to speak with each other. But gratitude has been one, probably other than communication, has been the soul saving, the saving grace of my marriage. The saving grace, because, man, when you have a marriage that your spouse is thankful for you, like really thankful, and you're reciprocating that, it just generates so much positive, beneficial things.
Man, absolutely, man. You're exactly right. And that's really with the part 1 of Dear Daddy. That's what Kevin suffered with, is a lack of appreciation, and feeling appreciated, because he never heard from his family a thank you, or dad or husband, I appreciate you. So I encourage your audience, man, to go check out the part 1 of Dear Daddy, Kevin. Adam, how did you receive it really quick, man? What are your thoughts about it?
So real quick, and then we're going to jump into our affirmations. So if you weren't on yesterday, Isaac was telling us about a book that he just is about to release. It's called Dear Daddy, and he's putting out a series on his YouTube channel. I'm about to drop the link in the chat here. But in this, like, I watched it, it was just 13 minutes, 14 minutes long, talking about the first chapter of his book and about Kevin and his life. And this narrative was so powerful, for all you men out there, all you ladies who have men in your lives. Like, watch this, and if you find value, like, share it with other people, because it was powerful for me. Like, I was, it was very powerful, and I'll just leave it at that. And so I'm going to drop this in here, and we're going to jump on our affirmations. And if you haven't already, we will be changing over to Growing Your Mindset podcast channel on YouTube, and we're just going to be streaming from there really soon. And so I'm going to drop that in here as well, so you guys can, if you haven't already, hop over there and like and subscribe the channel. Give us some love over there. And also, if you guys are getting any value out of this, make sure you get on Isaac's channel as well, the Journey of Life Network. And I'm putting that in here as well, because it is so important that we are supporting each other, especially these good works, these things that are so important out there in the world, for our men, for our women, for our children. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump onto these affirmations, Isaac. All right. So I am committed to my growth.
I am committed to my growth.
I am loved, appreciated, blessed, and highly favored.
I am loved, appreciated, blessed, and highly favored.
Challenges are opportunities for me to improve.
Challenges are opportunities for me to improve.
Every day I am getting better and better.
Every day I am getting better and better.
I am my best investment.
I am my best investment.
Life happens for me. Everything is for my growth and benefits.
Life happens for me. Everything is for my growth and benefit.
Yeah. I am an action taker.
I am an action taker.
I'm committed to being the most positive person that I know.
I am committed to being the most positive person that I know.
I am a fixer. I am somebody's answer. When you get me, you get everything that I'm connected to.
I am a fixer. I am somebody answer. When you get me, you get everything I am connected to. Amen.
Yeah. I am healthy, wealthy, and wise.
I am supremely healthy. Well, I am supremely happy, healthy, wealthy, wise, and $100 billion stronger in Jesus' name.
Let's go. Let's go. So everybody, thank you so much. And like I said yesterday, Justin is having a blast right now in Disney World with his family. So keep him in mind. He will be gone until next week. And so Isaac's going to be joining us for the remainder of the week. And thank you, Isaac, so much for coming on and hanging out with me for this short time in the morning. Everybody else, thank you so much. Thank you, Angie, for subscribing to Isaac. You're going to love his channel. It's amazing. And hopefully we'll be able to see more of that. So yes, reach out to Justin, tell him you missed him. If you got his information on Messenger, and tomorrow we will join again. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about parenting. So we're kind of making this progression here from the what is a man to the marriage relationship, and now we're going to be discussing this idea of parenting. And so without further ado, we will see you on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, you guys. All right, so let's see if I can figure this out right here. See you guys on the next one.